Hi, everyone. Welcome to Where Are All the Women? We're not all here, just me and Mary Lou, but
Hi.
hopefully some of you women are watching. And I think it's nice because I'm sort of doing an impromptu thing that I wasn't planning to do. I sort of was like I've been doing the Feminist Current podcast since 2012 now. So that's over a decade. And the point of that podcast was really just to do like a woman-centered podcast. Obviously feminism stuff, but in general, and I have interviewed some men on that podcast over the years, like Robert Jensen and a few guys who are anti-pornography activists and things like that. But, primarily the point has been to interview women about things that impact women. And, a lot of women on that podcast were women that, never got to go on podcasts or be interviewed otherwise, whether they're, activists and academics or whatever. But I've kind of been slowing down on that podcast, as people have noticed. I do it once a month still. But I've been more heavily focused on the same drugs thing and obviously less heavily focused on the feminism thing. So it doesn't always feel like the right fit anymore, because even, like a lot of the issues that I want to cover that are impacting women or not, I don't think they're necessarily feminist issues, and I don't really like defining things as feminist issues anymore. Anyway, so I sort of am really happy that this stream happened sort of organically, and it's just turned into a woman-centered podcast. It's really also about women. It's right in the title, after all. So that's cool. Happy Valentine's Day, everyone. Catherine just said Happy Valentine's Day. I keep forgetting that it's Valentine's Day. Have you forgotten or remembered that it's Valentine's Day, Mary Lou?
I've remembered a few times when people have reminded me. Yeah, yeah. My daughter brought flowers for the office that her partner had given her to bring to the office, so that was sweet. I keep forgetting. It's also Ash Wednesday. It's the first day of Lent, so there's that as well.
Oh, okay. I really had no idea about that. Nobody's wished me a happy Ash Wednesday yet.
But did you do more? Was there Mardi Gras stuff going on in your town last night?
No. Well, I didn't go into town actually last
Okay.
night, so I wouldn't have even known if there was. But I wasn't aware that, I don't know if we celebrate Mardi Gras here. I have no idea.
Yeah.
Is Lent primary? What's Lent? I mean, I know that it's like you give up something, but what's the idea behind Lent?
Lent is the 40 days before Easter. So it's this time of fasting and atonement because Jesus is going to be killed, so it's like it commemorates. This is all my Catholic school upbringing. I'm no longer someone who is really practicing that tradition. The last night I was sort of wanting ashes. I just kind of wanted to get some ashes. So in Catholicism, on Ash Wednesday, you go to Mass any time of the day, but usually in the morning, and the priest puts ashes on your forehead to remind you that you come from dust and to dust you'll return. So it's a reminder of your mortality and just to humble you. And then generally you give up something during Lent that is meaningful to you. Like in the Orthodox traditions, they give up all kinds of stuff like oil and meat and sweets. And yeah, they eat really austerely. The way I grew up, it was like you can't have meat on Friday and you have to give up something, but you get Sunday off. Like you can eat all the candy that you saved up all week on Sunday. It's just it's an interesting tradition. There's a time to get right with yourself. Some people do an internet fast. Some people quit sugar while we're waiting for Jesus to go through his trials and tribulations and then resurrect.
I like that idea. I'm trying to think of something that I would be willing to give up. I could definitely use the internet less. That would probably help my brain out, but I also need to use it for work, so I can't actually give it up entirely. Am I allowed to just give something up for a day or something like that?
Oh, you can do whatever you want, Yeah, you
Okay.
could just try it out. I'll tell you what I'm giving up, and it's a really hard one, and you'll understand why. And it might even be triggering to you that I'm giving up, but I'm giving up being mad about COVID for Lent.
I think that's great. I love
Yeah.
it.
I'm not going to let it steal my joy anymore. I'm not going to be mad about it. And
That
it's
would be
hard.
it's hard to catch yourself, I bet.
Yeah, it is. And I'm trying to laugh about it when I start thinking about it. I'm like, no, I gave that up for Lent, so I'm not going to be mad about COVID.
Okay, so do you do that for 40 days?
I guess I get Sundays off in my. I could be really mad. I'm gonna be really mad all day on Sunday.
Sorry about that horrible throaty laugh in the mic where it was
Right.
suitable
Someone just
for
reminded
COVID.
me in the chat. Lent covers the period Jesus fasted in the wilderness. Yes, I learned that in Catholic school, but I forgot that as the description. But yeah. No, it is. It feels really liberating. Like I am feeling good and free to be free of the seething rage that I've been carrying for 4 years now, So that's what I'm giving up for Lent.
I bet. Okay. I'm going to try to think about something that I can give up for Lent. I think I should oh gosh, I don't even know if I can do it. How pathetic. I was going to say I need to stop looking at my phone before I go to bed every night. Like staring at Instagram. This is how I go to sleep. I stare at Instagram until I start dropping the phone, like until I drop the phone on the floor. And then I'm like, oh, I should go to sleep.
That'd be a great thing to give up for Lent.
I've been looking, I feel like I've been looking at the internet way too much lately and looking at Instagram way too much lately.
What's helping me with that is I started reading a novel, and just remembering that I can read a book instead of scrolling helped me. Like I'm still reading before bed, but I'm not having that light in my eyes and the infinite rabbit holes of the internet.
Yeah, that's a good one. What I did with reading, I don't really like making New Year's resolutions, but for at least a few years in a row, my New Year's resolution was just to read more paper books. And finally, once I moved to Sayulita, so it would have been more than a few years because I've been here a few years now. So I must have been making this resolution for 6 years or so. I bet more than that. And I don't think there's ever been a time where I haven't felt like I should be reading more paper books, except when I was in high school. So when I'm here, like I go out for dinner by myself, once or twice a week and bring my book, and I'm not allowed to look at my phone. I can only look at the book. So that's been nice. But yeah, I think I'm not happy with my phone internet addiction patterns right now. Just because I think it doesn't seem to be interfering with my sleep, but I just think it's bad for my attention span and brain to constantly be shorting out whatever I'm doing to be like, oh, gotta look at Twitter, gotta look at Instagram. So anyway, maybe I'll give that a try. I'll need to think about this a little bit further. Anyway, I'm Megan Murphy. As I mentioned earlier, this is Mary Lou Singleton, and Isabella is oddly not with us here on the stream, but she's here with me in Sayulita right now. She got in today. But we're giving her a break from the stream so that she can have some vacay time.
Nice.
And I haven't seen her yet. I've been working all day, and I've been feeling like I've been fighting a cold, and I didn't want to impose that on her immediately as she got here, but I feel like I'm winning the fight. It's been very interesting. For a while I was getting sick like all the time, and I determined that it was a gut health thing. Obviously my immune system was struggling, and I had to go on antibiotics like 4 times or something like that in a year. So I just knew that my gut had probably been destroyed. So I decided to focus more heavily on building up my gut health, and I think that I've succeeded. I think my immune and spending more time in the sun, which is relevant to our conversation today, getting more vitamin D in the best way that you can get vitamin D. And the last time I started to feel like I was getting sick, barely anything happened and it just went away. And that seems to be what's happening right now. So I'm quite like, it's just there a little bit. And it's like the kind of thing where if I if I like went out and partied, I'd probably get sick. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, and this gave me an opportunity to practice my Lenten resolution, because I wanted to ask all kinds of snarky questions about, did you test for COVID and haven't you been boosted? But I didn't. I didn't, because I'm no longer.
That's very impressive.
Thank you. I'm glad that your health is improving.
Yeah, I'm feeling good these days. And yeah, so for those who aren't familiar with Mary Lou is a nurse practitioner and a midwife and a herbalist. And you can find her work and learn more about her at her website, which is enchantedfamilymedicine.com. And she's also on Twitter. I think it's Singleton_ML. Is that correct? I have that link down below if you're watching on YouTube in the show notes. But anyway, Mary Lou is a wealth of information about all sorts of things, from Catholicism to to herbalism to witchery, sorcery. Do you call it witchery?
I love calling it witchery. That's great.
Okay, I like witchery.
Yeah, yeah. I could tell you the patron saint of almost everything. Yeah. Facts.
So for people who are watching live on YouTube, if you have questions or comments, please use the live chat, and actually please use the super chat, because otherwise it's very possible I won't see it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to support the channel and the stream, because YouTube hates me. And yeah, today I tweeted like 2 or 3 days ago, because I've been thinking about this a lot lately. You know, what are some of the things that we've been told are bad for us that are actually good for us? Because I started to feel like it's almost everything, which isn't true. Like, nobody's ever told me that like exercise is bad for me. But you know, like food and nutrition related stuff, I just think we've been so lied to. And I would say that I find it weird, but knowing how much power like big pharma has, and that these corporations have over everything that the government says and health authorities say, never mind the media, you know, I guess it's not that surprising that we'd be getting bad information. But yeah, I mean, it's maddening nonetheless, because I feel like I've corrected my diet in my 40s for sure. But like when I was in my 20s, and for sure early 30s, maybe early to mid 30s, I think I was primarily following a vegetarian diet, and not, you know, not religiously. Like, I would eat meat if it was around. I just hardly ever made it at home. I didn't bother with it, and I didn't really think that it was important. I think we got so much bad information. And so one of the things that I've been learning a lot about lately that we've been told is bad for us, that's actually very good for us, is red meat.
Mm-hmm.
Do you eat red meat?
I do, and I feel a lot better when I eat it. But I also got, I'm just going to call it, brainwashed into believing vegetarianism was better. I remember being in college and reading, I think it was called Diet for a Small Planet. Do you remember that? John Robbins. He was like the heir of the Baskin Robbins fortune, the ice cream place, and then he became a vegan, and he wrote this book. I think he wrote Diet for a Small Planet. It might have been somebody else who wrote it, but it was all about how the planet can't handle us eating meat, and that if there are all these people here, we can't all keep living on the planet unless we all start eating vegetarian, primarily vegan diet. And for some reason, it made sense to me, you know. But I didn't feel good. I was depressed. I was anxious, and then I got all caught up in veganism, and I was eating all these fake things like vegan chicken nuggets and vegan,
Yeah.
vegan hot dogs, like really crazy chemical laden things. And I got pregnant, and I got to the point where like I was so sick of tofu. I thought I was like I was gonna vomit if I ever thought of eating another piece of tofu because I've been eating so much of it, trying to get enough protein. And I couldn't stand avocados anymore because I was eating so many. And I kind of went nuts in my pregnancy. And I've been vegan for a while, and I was one of those judgmental, preachy vegans that would love to tell you why you're a bad person if you're not vegan. And I remember I was like 20 weeks pregnant, and it was like a psychotic break. I walked over and I got my car keys. I went to my car. I drove to McDonald's. I got a chicken sandwich. I ate it in like 2 seconds. Then I got in line and I got another chicken sandwich. I ate it in like 2 seconds. You know? And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh, I feel so much better. I'm like, oh my God, like if I need meat, I better get some high quality meat. Like this is crazy to, be eating at McDonald's, but feeling like better than I had been eating like the fake. I mean, McDonald's chicken sandwich is probably as good for you as fake chicken, not like soy chicken nuggets, from the co-op, from the health food store.
Yeah, I mean, I think that people don't realize. I mean, meat is the best source of protein that's available to us, and I think people don't actually realize, or a lot of people, I didn't when I was younger, realize how much protein you need every day. And like to match just like a normal, not massive, not crazy portion of meat that is like really good for you and enough, you need, I don't know, you'd need to eat like 3 cups of beans or something like that. Like it's so hard to get the right, like enough protein and fat from a vegan or vegetarian diet.
Totally. Yeah, and it's also so processed. Like most vegans aren't actually eating whole foods. They're eating all of this processed stuff like oat milk. It's just grains and seed oils, which is another thing we could talk about. It's almost impossible to not have all this.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, is that I think that I think that most of the studies, if not all of the studies that they, use to have determined or to say that red meat is bad for you or the meat is bad for you in general, doesn't, like, I think they just survey people and look at these people's health and say, okay, well, this person eats this much meat and their health is bad. There was one, I think, semi-recently that showed that there was a correlation between eating meat and diabetes, but they hadn't taken into account any other aspect of these people's lifestyles. And of course, there's no correlation between red meat and diabetes. This is about processed food and sugar. And our meat consumption is way down in America, actually, and yet diabetes and obesity, of course, are way up. It's like the problem has never been meat. The problem has been processed food. And like you say, that's what so much of vegan food is. I used to eat all that stuff too. Like I would get like veggie dogs. I used to eat tons of tofu, the veggie chicken nuggets, like you said, like all this processed packaged stuff that you buy in the grocery store that contained all sorts of ingredients that, I barely even looked at the ingredient list. You just sort of, because you assume that it's healthy because it's marketed as healthy and the package looks healthy and there's like leaves on it.
I know, right? And it's at the health food store. Right. And, there's so many branches you could go with it of why it's a lie that veganism is better. The one I'm thinking of right now is that the idea that it's better for the planet, that's easier to grow beans and grains than it is to produce animal protein, which I think that people compare factory farming to factory farming, right? And we see like the horrors of keeping pigs in these horrible, terrible little cages and they're suffering, or industrial cow lots and feeding the cows all these grains. And then comparing that to like industrial soy production, and maybe it's marginally better to grow the plants that way. But if you come into regenerative agriculture, you can't keep land healthy without having animals on it. Like that's the only way to replenish the nutrients, is to have animals and their manure. And just as someone who's like a backyard chicken farmer, and I've had goats, my boys had pigs. These animals are really easy to grow. Like it's where I live, it's almost impossible to grow even like a week's worth of beans. It's in the backyard. It's very harsh here, but you can have a pig and just feed it your table scraps, and you've got 6 months of protein for a person just from a pig in the backyard.
Yeah, I mean, obviously factory farming's horrible. And then when you're talking about eating meat, it's about finding like grass-fed and local meat. And unfortunately, so many people don't have access. And unfortunately, the powers that be are making it or attempting to make it much harder to access by vilifying farmers and trying to take their land. There's actually in Duncan, where my sister and brother-in-law and kids live in the Cowichan Valley. I think I may have mentioned this last week. I can't remember. They did like tractor protest that was semi, in solidarity with what's happening across Europe, of course. But in this case, I'm trying to learn more about this. I don't have all the details, but there's some kind of plan to flood a ton of this really viable, really important farmland that's been around for like a century in the Cowichan Valley for environmental reasons, right? To protect the environment, to protect the waterlands kind of thing, which is, I'm not against protecting waterlands, but I'm definitely against like killing off farmers and getting rid of farmland so that the people in the area, like people, if you live in the Cowichan Valley, you can access, or anywhere on the island, really, you can access local cows and local chickens and local eggs. And I shouldn't say that you can access raw milk because it's banned.
Oh, right.
In BC, it's illegal to drink unpasteurized or to buy or sell unpasteurized milk. You're allowed to drink your own. If you have a cow, you can obviously drink, well, maybe not obviously, maybe they'll try to take that away too. But for now, if you have a cow, you can drink raw milk. So I guess if you have a neighbor who wants to donate some of their raw milk to you, maybe that would be allowed. But I mean, it's just these things are so warped, and I think people, including me, again, like I said, I'm still learning about it, really don't understand the issues. I'm sure something like that is something I would have supported 15 years ago, right? Like save the ducks.
Exactly. And the way they've, in the same way we've watched the language of feminism be co-opted to completely destroy women's rights through the transgender movement, they're co-opting all of these old radical environmental talking points, and the ruling class is using that to starve us out. Like, to get rid of the farmers is the most insane strategy. It's just going to manufacture a famine, or many, like a worldwide famine. But people hear the talking points and support it, right? It's like, oh, it's for the environment. Oh, cow farts are destroying the world, so we have to kill all the cows, which they're discussing. In like Ireland, they're talking about killing hundreds of thousands of cattle.
I know. I really hope the pushback. I hope that the farmers win. It seems like they are winning in some places, and I think it's a really important movement.
Well, and that's a country that, in my family is just a couple generations away from a manufactured famine, and now they're going to do it again. Like that's really, really distressing to see what's happening. And then and
I mean, I mean, it creates this. It's an attack on food sovereignty, and therefore it's an attack on our sovereignty, because if you don't have access to these local farms, where do you get your food? The supermarket. And where does that come from? Somewhere else. If something happens, there's some disaster, they close the borders, like, then you have access to nothing.
Right. And then you're going to be dependent on the government for your food because you're starving, which is colonization, right? Like, this is what happens when invaders come. They destroy the local food supply. They kill off all the buffalo. They poison the wells. They salt the fields like the Romans did. Like, this is an old tactic. It's an old tactic. And that people can't see it because it's couched in the co-opted progressive language is incredibly distressing.
Yeah, there was this one woman that they were interviewing. I think Rebel News interviewed her actually over in the Duncan area, and she was saying that the government had been trying to force her to put chlorine in her well for years, and she kept trying to comply, and it was never enough. And she didn't want to put chlorine in her well anyway, but like, she was trying to comply, and she was spending thousands and thousands, probably like probably like, it was a huge, like, it was at least tens of thousands of dollars, if not more, to continue to try to comply. And she could just never seem to do it. I mean, like, what are you trying to do here?
Poison the well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So in Canada, is there the loophole that you can sell raw milk and say it's for pet consumption? They can do
Oh,
that
I
here.
just read about that. I don't know. I haven't seen any raw milk for pet consumption in any grocery stores so far, but I should see if that's a possibility, because that would be awesome. I know that, yeah, there's ways that you can get raw milk in BC, but yeah, it's, private sales. But I mean, that's that's another thing that's been totally vilified, like, which I think is, I mean, I guess they were trying to stop people from getting E. coli. Is that why unpasteurized milk was banned and vilified as dangerous?
Listeria and brucellosis, like things that, even tuberculosis, things that cows can carry. And that was one that took me a long time to wake up to. I really thought the raw milk people were crazy for a long time, because I was tracked from the time I was little. You're going to medical school, and then there's all this dogma, this literal indoctrination that starts like long before college, of Louis Pasteur. He was this brilliant man. He saved the food supply. He figured out the germ theory. We'd all be dead of germs if it weren't for this brilliant guy.
I'll be dead of germs. Another thing that's been vilified that's good for us: germs, bacteria.
Exactly. And pasteurization comes from him. And it took me so long to wake up to that the only reason that was ever necessary was the industrialization of the food supply, right? That if you're putting the milk from 20,000 cows into one vat and one cow is sick, the entire thing is contaminated. So you have to pasteurize it all to make sure we didn't put one sick cow's product in there. But if you know your dairy, and it's a small dairy that knows their cows, they're not going to sell you milk from a sick cow. They won't be milking her. They'll be treating her. And our ancestors, we wouldn't have survived as a species if raw milk was deadly, right? Like, this is, especially those of us of European descent, that was a staple food for our survival for millennia. And how would we have made it if it was deadly? And why would we need to do this industrial process to it to make it safe, when that's what our ancestors, even my parents were raised on farms. They were drinking raw milk. They were fine. I don't understand how the hoodwinking happened, because once you've had raw milk, it tastes so much better, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. I don't get it, how they convince people to drink this product that was so inferior. But then I look at all the other hoodwinking and think, well, I mean, apparently it's pretty easy to convince us. Like, freaking margarine. Can we talk about margarine?
I know. I was raised on margarine.
Me too. My parents were convinced that butter would kill you because it's going to clog your heart up, and lard is so terrible. And my dad, who was a real contrarian, he'd be like, I don't know about all this stuff they're telling us. He would say over and over again, he's like, I'm not sure. So many more people are fat now. And he'd say, when I was a child, if someone was fat, we'd say, they must eat nothing but bread. That's what we would say. But now people are saying it's the fat. Like, he got it, but he was just this lone voice, and he still went along with it. Like, my mom was a nurse, and everybody, like, educated people didn't eat lard. Educated people didn't eat butter. That's crazy to eat that when you can have oleo and margarine.
Yeah, my dad was really like, he was a real health nut in quotations, because he got so much wrong, because he was sort of buying the environmentalist, leftist lines about all of this stuff. So yeah, so we rarely ate red meat. And then when I was a teenager, my family all stopped eating red meat except for me. So I'm living at home, so it's not like I had a ton of options besides like getting a cheeseburger at McDonald's. But
Yeah.
and yeah, we always had margarine, and there was always cereal every day, and it was like lots of bread, but it was whole wheat bread, so it was
Oh, there you go.
healthy.
So, well, often the whole wheat bread was just white bread with like caramel coloring in it.
Right,
It
of
really
course.
wasn't any different. It's still the enriched flours, the brominated flours. It's so amazing. Margarine is so
It's
disgusting.
so gross. I mean, I didn't really know any better because we so rarely had butter in the house. I think the only times we had butter in the house were for like baking, right?
Yeah.
And even often for the baking, we used shortening.
Yeah, Crisco kind of instead of lard, and
Which
which is
also
so
seems
superior.
really gross.
Yeah.
Like I mean, I had no idea how much better raw milk was until I moved to Mexico, because I can buy unpasteurized, fresh, organic milk at the little store across the highway from my house on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it tastes so much better. And I think that it, in part at least, cured my gut, like because it has all these really healthy bacteria in it. And I think as I understand it, the pasteurization process kills off a bunch of the nutrients, as well as, of course, all the good bacteria that you need for a healthy gut. So, I mean, there's barely any, I don't really think there's even any point in drinking pasteurized milk.
Just for calories and calcium, like macronutrient stuff, it's not good for you. It's not a living food. It's we never, maybe we will soon do this, tell breastfeeding mothers that they need to pasteurize their milk before they give it to their baby because it's not safe. But right now we understand that'll destroy it, right? Like everything that's good about human milk for human babies will be wrecked by putting that, through the pasteurization and homogenization process.
Yeah, well, and I just learned, I mean, it seems obvious, but I just learned that, breast milk has a lot of saturated fat in it. So, we might be giving these babies really serious heart problems.
I know. This baby should be vegan. It should be vegan, but you could get vegan formula. The soy formulas are soy and corn syrup solids and a whole bunch of chemicals. If you read the list of ingredients on baby formula, it's so disgusting. It's like a health conscious person would never eat that, and we're feeding it to infants as their only food.
Yeah. I mean, I think the most obvious thing that, if you're not a doctor or a scientist, again, which I'm not, and I'm not, good at reading scientific studies and things like that. But, I think that the biggest signifier that all this information they've been giving us is wrong is, of course, the health of Americans, which is horrible. Like the amount of people who have diabetes in America is so crazy.
Yeah, our food supply is so contaminated. Even stuff at the health food store compared to what it should be, it's just so chemically laden and so full of sugar and so full of additives. It's really, really disgusting. And if you walk into a commercial grocery store, every time it feels like the end of the world to me when I see what people are eating. When I walk into a mainstream grocery store, I always have a moment of having to sit with, like, okay, this is what Americans are made of. We're all going to die of chronic illness. We couldn't raise an army if we tried. We are a mess because our food supply is so bad.
Tina in the comments is saying raw milk is gross. I don't find it gross. I find it delicious. And then she says it's really, really dangerous. And then she says bone tuberculosis from raw milk used to be common in chicken. I don't
Probably
understand
in children, maybe. I don't know.
She says listeriosis, anyone. I mean, I think people get... Sorry, go ahead. No.
I think that, again, if you have your own cow that you love and you take good care of and you know she's not sick, you're not going to get sick from her. If you have a small dairy and you know that the animals are healthy, you're not going to get sick. But when we get into industrialized food production, yes, you could absolutely get bacteria that is harmful to humans in the milk supply.
Yeah, and Kamalian Siranush says any feminist should be able to see the misogyny in dairy. I feel like I've heard that argument come up in feminism, in like the radical feminism thing, end of things, for many years now. And no, I don't think that dairy is misogynist. I do think that factory farming is awful.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that it's really horrible and abusive and disgusting. And I hate that so many of us have to rely on it. But I don't think that dairy is inherently misogynist.
No. And I've had goats, and it did not feel. If anything, I felt exploited by my goats because they kept escaping and eating my entire garden, and they were sort of ordering me around because goats are like that. But it felt like a relationship, like I loved my goats and they loved me. And there's all this evidence of, the goats will nuzzle your neck while you're milking them. And they, like a mother who's breastfeeding an infant, they are picking up on what's going on with you, and they'll make antibodies for their milkmaids. They'll actually like make medicine for you if it's your goat. And it never felt exploitative. I know people have exploited their goats. They've, milked them way too long. Their goats aren't happy, but it doesn't feel misogynist to me. It feels like in my line, I feel like what I'm made of is people who evolved to have dairy animals for thousands and thousands of years.
I've always wanted to have goats, and this is just making me want to have goats even more so that I can have goat's milk and make goat's cheese and all sorts of things. And Tina,
I would never have thought of pasteurizing my goat milk ever.
No, I think that would defeat the purpose of having your own goat to give you goat milk. Sorry, I'm arguing with Tina in the comments now, who's saying if you own your own cow or goat, it's safer, but I would never drink raw milk or give it to a child. And then she says, Megan, please really look into it. I mean, that's okay. You don't have to agree with me, Tina.
No.
Tina doesn't support me on this. That's fine. You don't have to. You're not obligated to drink raw milk. I like it, and I feel that it's done wonders for my gut, and I think it is very healthy. And of course, there's a risk. There's also a risk, I think, every time you eat anything. I mean, people here get food poisoning all the time from all sorts of things, including from the water. But I think, from chicken. I mean, I got food poisoning from a Vietnamese restaurant in Vancouver that I had been eating at for 5 years or something like that. And one time I got food poisoning. Maybe somebody didn't wash their hands. You know what I mean? I think that it's, where do you got to get your probiotics from somewhere?
Well, I would say, so she's saying you need your own cow or goat to make it all safe. I'm going to disagree and say, so she says she's also a physician. So I have a health
physicians don't give us good information all the time.
Well, no, yeah, I mean, but as a physician, and if I were in Tina's community and consulting her as a physician, I'm going to trust that she's keeping her office clean enough that I'm not going to get infectious diseases in there, right? I'm going to trust that I'm not going to sit in a pool of blood from another patient. I'm going to trust things have been wiped down. I'm going to trust that she's following universal precautions and knows how to keep me safe as a patient to not be at elevated risk of all the things that we can control in a physician's office. In the same way that I live in a community where I know the people who raise the milk that my family drinks, and I love them and trust them to have healthy animals. And we have a division of labor that they trust me not to reuse needles for injectable drugs. I trust them to know how to keep their animals safe. And this is how it goes, and most people maybe don't have that relationship, but I don't think you have to have your own dairy animals for it to be safe. I think you need to know who is raising your dairy, and you need to know that they're following good practices and they care for their animals well.
Well, and one of the main takeaways here is this is why community is so important, because ideally and theoretically and in olden times and in current times, for example, what I'm talking about over on the island, for example, you do live in a community and you do know your local farmers and you know the people that you're getting raw milk from and you know the cows. You can go see the cows. You're probably friends with the people that you're sharing, their milk with. And there would be accountability, because if one person got bad milk from them, everybody would know and it would be a big deal.
It would ruin them, right? So they're going to be very careful about that. But to paint all raw dairy as this dangerous thing and everybody's going to get tuberculosis is crazy, and it really makes no more sense than saying you can't trust physicians because what if they're not sterilizing their instruments and we're all going to get tetanus from their instruments or staph infections from their bad practices, which absolutely does happen. Actually, it's a major cause of death in the United States is hospital acquired infections. It actually kills a lot more people than milk does.
Right. And it would be the same thing as saying, like, you can't trust a restaurant when you go there, and you can't trust a restaurant when you go there because you don't really know what's going on in the kitchen. Right. But at the same time, if somebody gets sick, then everybody knows and that restaurant may be ruined.
Right. Totally.
But no, of course, you have no idea. You don't know what they're doing back there. So it is a bit of a risk. It's all a bit of a risk unless you're kind of doing it yourself and you know where everything's coming from. But most of us live life with understanding that there's certain risks that we're taking all the time, every day, in everything that we do.
Totally. And again, if we come back to it, what we know is almost everybody in the United States is sick, and there's something wrong with the way we're eating. We all have these diseases that are at least partially related to diets, and obviously our food supply is not what it should be for that. And people didn't have these chronic illnesses before the industrialization of the food supply.
No, it seems like we're much sicker than we were before we had everything, before we were guaranteed that we would never get sick from food, and we had preservatives and everything was treated and processed so that there was no bacteria anywhere. It seems like we're much worse off in a lot of ways.
Totally. People keep bringing up the whole, women aren't cows and breastfeeding's different, but we actually are living in a time where we are seeing industrialized human milk industries pop up, where women are literally hooking themselves up to milking machines and selling their milk, and that milk's getting pasteurized and being sold in human milk banks. And I guess I can see that connection with what they're saying about exploitation of the cows, but that we start critiquing what's happening to humans. Like, that is considered like this height of progressive health justice, that we can give industrialized breast milk to babies in the hospital now. And I have a big problem with that. That seems, really the wrong direction to be going. And instead, we need to back it up on both ends of localization of breastfeeding and localization of cows and goats and our milk supply there.
Mm-hmm. Joe is asking where we are on kombucha. I love kombucha, so if it's also good for my gut, then that's great. But I love how it tastes also, so I'm good with kombucha.
I like back and forth on kombucha in terms of even liking it. Like, sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But it's interesting to see it come in and out of favor and fashion. When my mom had cancer in the late 80s, there was like this secret, like it was called the Manchurian mushroom tea. People were like, oh, you'll cure your cancer if you get the Manchurian mushroom tea. And people who drink this in Manchuria, like, we're in like this little town in Pennsylvania, and there's this little like mimeograph stuff from the health food store in Pittsburgh that this magic thing is going to cure everybody's cancer. And it ended up being kombucha. And my mom was like buying that and making that. And then it went out of fashion for a while. And then I worked in a health food store in the 90s, and it was coming back, but people were, we were selling it out of like big vats that people were making. And now there's the whole kombucha industry. Kombucha it's a mixed culture. It's not really the same as a lacto-fermented food, right? It's not, I'm not sure where it is on probiotics, because there's a lot of fungus in it too. So I don't know if it's good for you or not, but a lot of people love how it tastes.
I suspect that this is probably the first time in my life that I've been getting probiotics without having to take probiotics. And I don't know how much I trust, the kind of probiotics that you would take in pill form in general. I sort of feel that way about supplements in general, I suppose. I take tons and tons of supplements just to try to make sure that I'm covered on, all my vitamin D, milk, thistle, turmeric, vitamin C, everything. But I don't know how much of that is actually like processed by your body. So I think that raw milk is probably a much better option. And like I said, I feel like I'm doing a lot better health-wise than I was last year, for example, or the year before that.
I just know so many people who had chronic gut issues that swear that they feel much better now that they drink raw milk. I know many people have told me that their allergies, that they don't have seasonal allergies anymore, that they started drinking raw milk. There are no studies. The dairy industry isn't going to allow there to be big studies on this, right? But
no, if you Google, you're not going to find any good information. If you Google, I keep discovering every time I try to do research for this stream every week.
Right. And it's getting worse and worse. I miss the old internet where you could find all the weird shit,
Yeah.
So
you can't get anything. You just get like government sponsored websites or whatever, or advertising. Right. So everything that you find, if you Google, is unpasteurized milk good for you, or is unpasteurized milk bad, or health benefits of unpasteurized milk, is going to be some government website that's like warning, and or just that you'll be informed that there's actually no health benefits. There's no health benefits. It's the exact same thing as drinking regular milk.
It's exactly the same. Yeah. But anecdotally, I've heard from literally hundreds of people that they feel so much better if they're drinking raw milk, and that it's changed their lives. And I personally don't know anyone who's gotten sick from it.
Me neither. And I know tons of people who drink raw milk, and I've never heard of one getting sick. And, even people will say, oh, sometimes it's like hard on your stomach if you're not used to it. I've never had any problems. I don't know, my family drinks it all the time, the entire family. Nobody's had any problems. People over here obviously drink it all the time.
Right. It's just milk.
Store there. Yeah.
It's just milk.
Yeah. And it's only vilified. It's obviously not vilified here. It's like no big thing. Although it's like, of course you're not going to, you don't buy it from the tienda or the big grocery store,
Right.
But, it's not like, it's totally vilified in Canada. And I think, is it treated the same way? The US always confuses me because I think it's state by state. And so I think in California, it's legal to buy raw milk. Is that right?
It's not just state by state, it's county by county where I live. Like and even city by city, we used to have to drive out of the city limits. So I'd have to drive like 2 miles south of my office to get raw milk from the local dairy. Or I could get it. Now it's legal, so I think I can say this, but the dairy, the folks that I know who run the sweet little local dairy, they'd be at the farmer's market and you could get milk there. And I'd have to kind of like say the magic words that, could I get the green top milk for my pets? And then we have to go into their refrigerated truck, and at the back they had the raw milk. But not everybody could access that. You had to be in the know. But now you can sell it in the city limits here, because they just voted to legalize raw milk here. So it's not just national, state, county, it's at the level of cities and municipalities.
That's interesting. It does not work like that in Canada.
The science changes depending on where you live. Yeah.
We're all about big government here. Well, not here, there. I say here, but I'm not literally in Canada.
It's horrible.
I mean, it's all I've wanted this for some time, but this all just reinforces the fact that, I need to have goats. I need to have chickens. I can't be in Canada full time. So I sort of, I can't. I'll have to try to figure that out. I'll have to try to convince my sister to get a cow and some goats and some things like that. And then I'll do part-time goating and cowing.
There you go. And chickens are super easy. So we could talk about eggs, all the demonization of eggs and
Eggs,
cholesterol.
yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, that was big in the 90s. Like, I think when I was a teenager, the idea that eggs, and probably in the early aughts too, because I mean, I eat eggs here almost every day. Every time, like, if I go to the gym, when I get home from the gym, I eat eggs and bacon with like a bunch tons of vegetables in them. That's what I eat every day. And eggs are so good for you. In like, I mean, eggs are almost like a perfect food. They're one of the only things, actually, we can get into this later, but if you're taking vitamin D, you also need vitamin K, like K1 and K2, and egg yolks are one of the best sources of
Right.
K2, I believe, right? But yeah, like it was a big thing where it was like cholesterol, like again, clog up your arteries, clog up your heart, and that's so bad because there's so many great. It's just such and they're cheap, and they're free if you have chickens.
They're free, and chickens will eat like pigs. They'll eat your scraps. Like this has just been something poor people have done forever, is have a pig and some chickens in the backyard, and then they're self-sufficient in quite a bit of protein, because you can feed them your kitchen waste and they will give you excellent food. And chickens will scratch around and eat bugs, they'll eat roaches, they'll eat snails, they'll eat pests, they'll eat centipedes, they'll eat black widows. Like, they're eating all the insects that we don't like. And they'll eat your garden waste and your kitchen waste and turn it into the perfect food, and abundantly. I have 5 chickens right now, and we get 4 to 5 eggs a day. I'm giving away dozens of eggs. Like, that's too many eggs for Phil and I to eat every day. And it's just they just hand it out. They're just giving away free food all the time, these little birds. Yeah, it's crazy that the demonization of eggs, and that remember egg beaters, or even like people who only do the whites. Like, that's still a big thing here, of like egg
I
whites.
did that. I went through that phase.
Yeah, right. It's like for dieters, so you don't want to get fat and eat all
An egg white omelet, right?
I know, it's disgusting.
And when it's not where all the nutrients are.
Right,
I
right.
actually I like egg whites better than egg yolks if they're separate, which is unfortunate, but I make scrambled eggs, so it's not an issue. But yeah, I mean, that's like, it's still, I think that this is less in fashion than it once was, but you can still go to any kind of, or many restaurants, and get like an egg white. Why would you want an egg white omelet? What would be the point of that?
Right, right. But, there are people within the public health community that think there should be regulation of egg selling, that eggs have to be officially graded, they have to be examined because of the salmonella risk, that everybody's going to die if they just eat eggs from random people. And then we get this industrial chicken farming situation and industrial eggs, and they're disgusting. The yolks they're just so pale, they're almost white, because these chickens have never seen the sun and they haven't scratched the ground. They've never eaten real food.
That's sad.
It is really sad, and it's a completely different food than an egg from a chicken that lives outside.
Yeah, I mean, here, as you know, in Sayulita, there's chickens in Mexico in general, unless you're in Mexico City. There's chickens everywhere. Like, my entire little barrio, my neighborhood here, is just full of chickens everywhere. Baby chickens, roosters everywhere. It's just covered in chickens. Everyone here has chickens. They have eggs for themselves, and then they sell them to the tiendas. So even if I can go to my sort of fancier organic store, which is where I get the raw milk, and I can buy good eggs there. But even if you just go to the little tienda, those are just local eggs from your neighbors. And they're like these orange yolks, and they're so cheap, and they're so filling, and you get so much protein and nutrients from them. And I just, I get better eggs here than I ever did in healthy Vancouver. And I can't even imagine how much eggs cost in Vancouver now. I heard that they've gone up in price quite a bit.
Right. They're really trying to push people out of eating real protein. Yeah. So what I want to know about Sayulita is there's so many dogs roaming free and so many chickens roaming free, and the dogs don't eat the chickens?
Probably sometimes they do. But I've never seen a dog eat a chicken. I've never seen a dog attack a chicken before. But I mean, like I think most of the dogs roaming around here, based on what I see and have experienced, are like fine, normal, calm dogs. But dogs are also still dogs and animals, and sometimes dogs will attack people. And so probably sometimes they attack chickens. But yeah, I've never seen it. I did see a dog the other day when I was walking home with a spine hanging out of its mouth. I don't know what the spine was, but
Wow.
it was like,
Happy
wow,
dog.
score, buddy. But yeah, I forget where I was going with this, but yeah, I mean, it's like the vilification of actual food and local food and self-sufficiency. It's hard to not think that it's a plot and a conspiracy to take all of our power and sovereignty away from us and turn us into unhealthy, dependent, plugged in, lethargic. You talk about like lethargy and depression. I mean, I think that I think this might sound glib or stupid or something, but I mean, I think that there's actual evidence to show that, like, if you eat more red meat and if you get more good fat and protein and if you get more sodium and potassium in your diet, that you can really, I mean, I had no energy when I was in my 20s. At the time when I'm probably supposed to be most vibrant. I feel much better now than I did then. And I think that had so much to do with the fact that I wasn't eating red meat and that I was just eating the processed foods.
Right.
And vitamin D, of course,
Right, 'cause not
the
getting
big bad sun.
Well, and so many of the depressed youth that I know are they're consuming all of this liberal programming to make them feel hopeless about the future and make them feel crap about everything. Everything good in their life is privilege that they should feel like shit about, right? It's like, oh, I have, a healthy, stable home, so I need to feel bad because I'm privileged about that, right? Or people are, they're consuming all this media that's messing with their minds, and then so many are vegetarian or vegan, so they're the cell membranes in their brain are made of rancid nut oils. They just are not healthy on a biochemical level. They're not getting enough protein, and they're terrified of the sun. They never get any sunlight, and they're all self-proclaiming their mental illness identities, and it's all related.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, the sun thing, it's one of those things where it's like you see one thing and then you see everything, which has clearly happened to me in the past 6 years or whatever, where I'm like, "Oh, salt isn't bad for you. Salt is good for you. Oh, the sun isn't bad for you. The sun is," I was one of those people who I mean, I was never really out in the sun that much, and of course, sometimes I would, like, in the summer, go to the beach and get a sunburn because my skin couldn't handle it, but I would wear sunscreen on my face every day, and, was worried about getting skin cancer and wrinkles and all those things. Now I realize that wrinkles are unavoidable. But
Just get Botox. Get your sun and then get Botox.
oh gosh.
A little botulinum toxin, like the most deadly of all food poisonings. You can inject it in your face.
But stay out of the sun.
Right.
Like, it's because it's not only that people, I mean, that people are afraid of the sun, but it's that the covering yourself in sunscreen thing is actually really bad. I was reading about this week, and I've read about this and listened to some podcasts about it in general, but like, I think like half the population is vitamin D deficient in the US.
At least.
Yeah, and something like, I think like 70% of kids are not getting enough vitamin D, not getting enough sun, because the best way to get vitamin D is from the sun.
Right. We make vitamin D out of sunshine and cholesterol. So that like we're not eating enough eggs and butter.
Eggs and sun.
Yeah, that's made out of sunshine and cholesterol.
Eggs, butter, sun.
Yeah.
Right.
Everyone's deficient.
And like, I think I mean, vitamin D is, let me just see what I discovered here. I mean, vitamin D deficiency is linked to cancers, high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, of course, depression. This was another thing, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, chronic muscle pain, bone loss, osteoporosis, autoimmune diseases. So all those things that I got yelled at for asking why it was only women that had fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue and whatever the other one was, and was like, maybe you need to get more sun and get some exercise and eat red meat, which people were like, it's not, I tried everything and nothing works. But I think that's wrong. Like, I think vitamin D could cure or at least help out a lot with a lot of these things. And, and I think that probably part of the awakening around vitamin D for myself happened during COVID.
And it's best to make your own vitamin D. I am a fan of supplementation if people are really low, and I do think you can get
good,
some of the
I
benefits.
do supplement.
Yeah, totally. But when you wake up from the hoodwinking and go back to sunbathing, which has been so vilified, but which it was really a hot pastime in my youth, like we would lay out in the sun and feel good, right? When you go back to sunbathing and you realize like sun is an essential nutrient, right? It feels really good to get sun on you, and that vitamin D is going to be even better for you than anything synthetic. I think one of the reasons women are more vitamin D deficient is vitamin D is made in the oily parts of our skin. That's where most of it's made. So the face, the shoulders, the chest, the places where we're oiliest. And that's where we have the most fat it's a fat soluble, like it's made of fat and sunshine. It's made of cholesterol and sunshine. So women are putting all this makeup on that's blocking the sun. So even when they're just walking outside, men are getting more sunshine on their face walking from the car to the grocery store, walking from the car to the office, than women who have all this SPF 30 makeup on every day that they put on, which is
yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, women are doing that more, and women are probably washing their faces more because vitamin D is made in the upper lip skin in crystals, and it absorbs over a couple of days. So if you're showering every day, you're absorbing less vitamin D into your system.
I've been doing everything wrong.
Oh, I know we all have, because we've been hoodwinked, the hoodwinking.
I've been wearing moisturizer with sunscreen and makeup with sunscreen in it I mean, I don't wear makeup every day. If I'm here, I put makeup on for YouTube, but I don't put makeup on to go outside necessarily. But not in the daytime in any case, because you just sweat it off and it would look disgusting. So there's really no point.
I got so much sun this summer just swimming with my grandsons like every day that we could, and it was so much fun, and I felt great. I remembered what it felt like to be a kid out in the sun all day in the summer, how much I loved to just like spend the day swimming and bathing and being out in the sun. I loved getting sun. And here where I live in the high desert, like I have to moderate my sun more. It's like definitely the sun is too much at certain points of the day, but I was getting sun every day. And I have had the healthiest winter working in primary care. I've had people like coughing on me like every day, sore throats, doing strep tests every day, like open your mouth and say ah while you're sick. And I should knock on wood, but I feel like it's the vitamin D. And then I was just realizing like, oh, my skin is so pale, like the vitamin, that's my sign that it's running out, that I need more. And I've just been feeling a little under the weather this week, right as I was feeling the sun benefits exiting my body. And I think it's related. Vitamin is a huge part of your immune system.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I started to, I'll work out outside when I go to the gym, and I don't wear sunscreen, and that's sort of my good sun intake. And yeah, I never really bothered thinking about it or thinking about vitamin D much in general. Again, one of those things, they don't give you any good information about it. It's like, it's so maddening. Megan Wisdom says, if you don't eat seed oils, your skin won't burn. Is that true?
I keep hearing that, and I'm not sure. what I've been doing is a lot of the antioxidant herbs after sunbathing, and if I'm starting to feel pink, I'll just I have aloe plants and I'll get them all over me. There's a plant here where I live called chaparral that's been used for thousands of years to reverse sunburns, and it's a strong antioxidant for the skin. And I've been putting tea or salve of that on, and I'll feel burnt, and as soon as I get the plants on my skin, I just watch it reverse. I've not been getting sunburned like I used to, but I'm also eating a lot fewer seed oils. I don't know.
Okay, that's great
A lot of people
information. I need to get an aloe plant over here. I've been meaning to do that.
Totally, yeah. An aloe plant would be great.
And I mean, also it's like, because people responded to me when I said that on Twitter by being like, but my skin burns when I go out in the sun, or my skin burns when I go out in the sun, so it must be bad. But I mean, you do kind of have to work up. Like, I'm not a lie out in the sun kind of person. I just am out in the sun when I'm walking around, or like I said, when I'm going to the gym and I take the dogs up to the roof and like stretch a bit in the sun. I just try to get little bits because I do have pale skin, obviously. But the more you're out in the sun, the less that you're going to burn. So you do have to kind of work up, like get like a good callus going, as it were.
Right. Well, you know, and this used to be common knowledge that you get your base tan and then you won't burn. And it's true. It's actually true. Totally. And now this is heresy. Like, people, I can just hear my colleagues, like in medicine, being like, I can't believe she's telling people to lay out in the sun and get a base tan and get more tan. And all I know is, when I was a kid and people were tan and laying out in the sun, people seemed a lot healthier. And statistically, we don't have a lot more skin cancer. We didn't have a lot more skin cancer back then. It's just, it's not making sense to me. I feel better when I lay out in the sun. I think kids do better when they get sunshine. Our ancestors have always acknowledged that. It's insane. It's literally insane to be afraid of the sun.
Well, yeah. And what people are doing now, again, in very healthy places like Vancouver, BC, all the yuppies, it's the middle and upper classes. Maybe they'll all die out and we'll only be left with the working class. That would make me happy. I can't tolerate the elites. I never have been able to. And now I feel ever more justified in not being able to tolerate them. But they're putting their babies in these full body suits and hats to go out to the beach or the pool, and then slathering them in 50. I don't even, it's even higher than that. The amount of SPF that you can get in your sunscreen is crazy. It's like, this is 100.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Insane. It's just insane. And that, kids are not being allowed to get any sun in the middle and upper classes. It's they're so terrified of it. And meanwhile, the working class kids are getting tan, and they, there's a lot of obesity in impoverished people, but I think that people who are outside a lot are healthier, and a lot working class kids are allowed to get more sun if they are going outside more.
We were always outside when we were kids. We biked to the pool every day in the summer, or to the beach or whatever. We'd always be camping and just playing outside in general. So what do you think about the skin cancer thing? I mean, obviously the big reason why people stopped going out in the sun and started feeling afraid of the sun and covering up their kids like that and slathering themselves in a 110 SPF was for fear of skin cancer.
So there is good evidence that blistering sunburn before age 10 is a major risk factor for melanoma. So being judicious, not letting your kid get a blistering sunburn. Don't let yourself get a blistering sunburn. You've learned to moderate. In the same way, it's don't get blackout drunk. That's dangerous. Doesn't mean no one can ever have any alcohol. Not to say they're equivalent things, the sun and alcohol. But there is some correlation between melanoma and bad sunburns in childhood. But beyond that, no, there's not any evidence that sunscreen in adulthood prevents melanoma, which is the deadly skin cancer. And there's very little evidence, according to the National Institutes of Health, that it prevents basal and squamous cell cancer. That those, are not really prevented by avoiding the sun or wearing sunscreen. It's mostly to prevent aging of the skin, sunspots and wrinkles and oxidative stress of the skin.
Interesting. Yeah, I remember a couple times when I was younger, probably when I was 17, 18, I got a blistering sunburn on my shoulders, and that taught me a good lesson. That's probably happened to me 2 or 3 times in my life from just being sort of stuck out in the sun and not having any way to shelter. And so, yeah, hopefully
But
I
I think that, redheads, you don't have a lot of melanin. You have to be more careful with it. But you also, if you're in tune with yourself, you're going to not, you learn not to let yourself get that burnt.
No, I
right?
mean, that's why I don't go and lie out at the beach for
Right.
3 or 5 hours. That would be silly. But yeah, you just kind of you expose yourself and you get used to it. And Arian Yuda says sun is not meant for white people, simple as, and I think certainly white people are less tolerant of the sun than non-white people, but sun is meant for everybody. Needs the sun. Everybody needs, nobody's getting enough. I think it's like next to impossible, if not impossible, to get enough vitamin C, the vitamin C that you need if you're not going out in the sun at least a bit.
Well, I mean, according to evolutionary biology, like we have light skin to maximize the benefits of the sun exposure we get, right? That if we evolved in places without a lot of sun, we needed less melanin, so we could make more vitamin D, that we have less natural protection from constant sun exposure. But I think we're supposed to get quite a bit of sun.
I emailed my mother today to tell her that she needed to get more sun, because my mother is like very, very pale ivory skin, and she's not very wrinkly. Her skin looks very nice, but she's just been informed that she has osteoporosis, and it's pretty bad. So I was like, and I sent her a link to this article. I don't know if she'll listen to me. I'll probably need to force her, and who knows if she'll listen to me or not. But yeah, I was like, you need to, because she doesn't go out in the sun ever. If she's outside, she's like in the shade wearing pants and like a long sleeve shirt. And they just, that, I mean, I was like, I've been given lots of bad information too, but that they just, they got so much bad information in, when I was a kid, I think in the 90s and the aughts, that kind of just really stuck with them in terms of health. I also told her she should come down here and get stem cell treatment, but I think the big thing would be getting a lot more vitamin C, because apparently that helps quite a bit.
Totally.
Or vitamin D, sorry.
Vitamin C is great too, but vitamin D is just awesome. The fact that people are not only afraid of the sun, but they are willing to slather themselves and their children with really toxic chemicals because of their fear of the sun, and covering our skin with industrial produced sunscreen and it's the unquestioning acceptance of that really blows my mind. That stuff has, microplastic and parabens and phthalates and all of these endocrine disrupting substances that wreck us, that really not just block our ability to make vitamin D, but mess up our endocrine systems and our immune systems.
When I was getting ovarian cysts, I haven't had them in, when was the last time this happened to me? I don't know, maybe when I was 36 or 37 or something like that. So it's been a while. But yeah, I sort of rehauled my diet and started looking at the ingredients and all the products I was using and stuff like that. And I think, I was using all sorts of products that had all sorts of crap in them, including sunscreen. And that was also when I was eating all this like soy and all this processed like vegan meats, and not, eating eggs and regular meat every day. And I haven't had those issues in a really long time. And I just have to, I think absolutely there's a correlation between all these chemicals and what is the endocrine blocker? Disruptors. Yeah.
So those are chemicals. There's so many of them that interact with our hormone receptors and send us into deranged states of endocrine health, because our body is receiving those as they are hormones, right? So that a lot of endocrine disruptors are like xenoestrogens. So they fit into the little lock on the cell that is supposed to be an estrogen receptor. They look enough like that, they fit in there, and they turn on the cell process of estrogen, but they're not actually estrogen. A lot of those chemicals are also very persistent in the body, that our body doesn't know how to break them down. So they keep circulating and circulating and circulating, and just creating havoc on our endocrine systems. Some are toxic to our thyroid glands. Obviously, like, we're in the state of insulin derangement in the United States, where almost everybody's got blood sugar problems and carbohydrate intolerance, and some of that is from the plasticizers. Most of that's from the food, though.
Yeah, I mean,
they
I
make
think
us fat and crazy. These endocrine disruptors make us like fat and fertile, crazy.
so many things. The other thing that I mentioned this earlier, that's been totally vilified, that is absolutely important and necessary, is of course salt.
Yes.
And not just
salt. Totally.
Salt was like, we thought salt was like, I don't even know what we thought salt would do back in the 90s. Probably give you a heart attack, just like all that other stuff.
Give you high blood pressure. It's
high blood pressure.
There are there's a small subset of people with high blood pressure that they can get their blood pressure under control better if they're not eating salt. But even people with high blood pressure, their salt intake doesn't usually make a difference in their blood pressure. But we need salt. We're made out of salt. We absolutely need salt, and that's another one that's been demonized.
Yeah, and I think it's not just like the table, like I think a lot of like table salt's been super processed, and here they put in the regular salt that you'll get like at a restaurant or in the tiendas, it has fluoride in it. So that's
fluoride, not just iodine?
Yeah.
Fluoride.
Yeah, as well as the iodine. Yeah, so that's why I texted you before the stream started to ask if I could send you some Celtic sea salt to bring with you when you come to visit, because I'm having trouble finding good salt here. There's some things that I can get here and some things that I cannot.
Wow.
But yeah, Celtic sea salt, and I think you want to look at the salt and see that there's like, you want the salt that has all the good minerals in it and doesn't have a bunch of shitty chemicals in it. But like salt, like you can't, it's so ironic because people think of salt as something that dehydrates you, but you can't actually be properly dehydrated without salt. And if you're working out and drinking coffee, you're losing all your salts. You need extra. Exactly. Like every day I bring like 2 big bottles of water with me to the gym that have salt. Like I have some pink Himalayan salt that I think I brought from the States with me. And lemons in there. And then on top of that, I take potassium and magnesium. But yeah, it's just, that's like the weirdest, most backwards information, that like salt is bad for you and that it's dehydrating and you need to do low salt to be healthy, when the opposite is really true.
Well, I think a processed food diet is so high in added salt, and that, because that's what most people are eating, that has skewed the data so much, right? When people are eating fast food and chips and soda, which is called that because it's, got sodium in it usually, and they probably are eating too much salt in all of those crazy forms. And then that's been translated into people eating real food shouldn't put a little bit of salt on their eggs. They shouldn't.
You should only add any salt food if you want to be healthy.
Right.
I mean, that's kind of the information that we were given, except that, of course, I mean, processed food isn't bland at all. That's why we get addicted to it. But yeah, it's like you can't have any like good fat or butter or salt or red meat, which is, all the good stuff. If you want to be healthy. Cruel.
It's crazy. It's really crazy. Yeah, all the low fat crap, like just the way that they pushed all of that. Remember those? I don't know if you ever saw those cookies called Snack Wells. Those were popular when and they're the most disgusting, like low fat cookies. Like they're just gross. they're all dry and they don't taste good, but because they have sugar in it, they're going to be addictive to sugar addicts, and people just eat a whole box of those if they're a sugar addict and end up feeling terrible. Like no one wants.
Yeah, you feel so gross after eating that stuff.
Like nobody wants that really, but they've been brainwashed into thinking that's like a healthy snack food.
I've been having trouble finding good chocolate over here, and I know that everybody says that if you're eating kind of like a keto themed diet, which I I do, like if I eat a lot of meat and cheese and eggs and fat and stuff like that, and I eat vegetables and some fruit. I should be eating more fruit for sure. But I still get they're like, you won't have any sugar cravings. And I'm like, well, I still want chocolate after dinner. Yeah. So I don't know if this has worked for you guys, but I haven't been able to really find good chocolate over here. So I've just been I buy like cocoa powder, not like sugary cocoa powder, just plain cocoa powder from my organic place over there. And then coconut oil. And then I put like a little bit of stevia in it and almond butter and mix it up, and then I put it in the freezer for like half an hour, and then you have like delicious, rich, nutty chocolate, and it has all this good fat in it. It's super easy. It's great. I'm pretty
It's so sad you can't get good chocolate down there in the place where there's good chocolate.
I mean, I'm sure like if I could drive somewhere to find it, but there's not, I don't know if it's not like if you go to just the tiendas, it's going to be the junky chocolate,
Yeah, it's not even worth it. I'm also surprised that nobody with enough beach is doing like local salt down there. It seems like it wouldn't be that hard to harvest some salt right on the ocean.
That's a great idea. So you could move down here. Good. And you could do that. You could do the good chocolate and the good salt.
All those things. Chickens and a goat. Yeah. No. What else is good for us that they say is bad for us?
I think it turns out coffee is good for us, but I didn't actually go into any in-depth research about that. But I think coffee was one of those things that was also vilified for a long time. And I think, I'm sure if you drank like liters and liters of coffee, if you liters and liters of anything, it's probably going to be bad for you. But I think coffee is good for you.
I think especially given what's happened to the food supply, coffee is one of the only bitter foods that Americans are having, and we need bitter to get our liver moving and dumping bile and cleaning out our gallbladder and keeping our colon moving. People aren't eating other bitter foods in the United States, especially. It's just all like sweet and salty and savory somewhat. And then coffee, I read this study a few years ago that blew my mind. It said coffee is now the single biggest source of antioxidants in the average American diet. Just crazy. Like
I guess that makes sense because it's not like, people aren't eating a lot of fresh produce and fruits and stuff like that, I guess, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, and there were a lot of studies that coffee is, it helps delay the onset of dementia. It keeps people more sharp. If you don't have high blood pressure or severe anxiety, that it's probably a net win for you to drink it.
Why did they say that coffee was bad for us to begin with?
Is it? Here there's like a coffee shop on every corner. They're really pushing the coffee. So
yeah, okay. That's true. But yeah, I remember. I guess Asta in the comments says, I'm so sick of people giving me crap drinking one coffee in the morning. And I remember people giving me crap about drinking too much coffee. They were like, you're addicted to coffee. It's just like a drug like anything else. And I'm like, well, first of all, I'm not anti-drug, and none of us are anti-drug, clearly. Like, do you not take pharmaceuticals? And I don't have a negative relationship to coffee. I love coffee. It makes me happy. It helps me enjoy my day and feel good in my day. And it's also, I drank my raw milk in my coffee, and Now I'm still angry. I remember I had this abusive boyfriend. I don't even want to call him a boyfriend because I wasn't even in that relationship by choice. It was just something that kind of like happened. I've talked about this before on the stream and in other circumstances, but it's like, I didn't choose to be in a relationship with him ever, so I don't even. Anyway, I was in this relationship with an abusive man, and he tried to, like, among all of the abusive things that abusive men do, he was like, I don't want coffee in the house anymore. It's like, what? Like, I don't want coffee in the house. Coffee's everybody's high on coffee all the time. This is an alcoholic, by the way, and who smokes weed all day, every day. And smoked cigarettes all day, every day too, also. But like, I don't want coffee in the house, like, I don't like what it does to people. And, if we're going to be together, there can't be coffee in the house. And it's like, fuck off.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, I think there was this thing going where people were like, everybody's hopped up on stimulants and we're all addicted and yada, yada, yada. But I mean, if I'm addicted, I don't really care if I'm addicted. I'm not afraid of all addictions, I don't think, but I don't really have a big addiction problem in general, except for coffee, I guess.
It's interesting, the history of coffee and tea, and coffee coming in with industrialization and needing people to do, to work for 8 hours straight. And I think that, there's a lot to critique about stimulant culture, right? But in itself, I don't think coffee is really bad for us. I remember practicing as a midwife, and women were always asking, like, is it okay to drink coffee? Is it okay to drink coffee? And I would always like show them the studies that universally show that moderate consumption of coffee is safe during pregnancy, and they're defining moderate consumption as 6 to 8 cups a day. That's moderate, and like, that's a lot of coffee. And so there's no evidence it's unsafe during pregnancy. There's some evidence it keeps your mind sharp. I think it's really good for your liver.
That's great news. Maybe it can balance off the raicilla problem that I have then.
There you go.
Raicilla, the cleanest alcohol out there, really.
There's such a
there's no preservatives, there's no chemicals in my raicilla that I drink. It's straight from it's just the agave, that's it. And then the natural processes that it goes through. The perfect alcohol if you like drinking poison. No.
There you go. And you don't like the pulque, right? That's not.
Oh, because it's so sweet.
Oh, I love it because I'm
Oh, I hate sweet drinks. Like, I hate pop, luckily, because pop is like the worst thing in the world for you. But I also don't like, I don't like any like sugary cocktails or sugary drinks. Like the sugary milky drink, it's like I can have like, I'll have like a carajillo sometimes, which is delicious, which is like an espresso, and it has this, I'm not going to remember what it's called, but this kind of sweet alcohol in it. I can have like one of those. And then of course I love the pina coladas. I'm not into pina coladas at all. I've never been into pina coladas. I don't like them when I have anywhere else, but the pina coladas at Aloha that made you break out in hives I've had like, I went there like last month and had like 3 of them, and I just basically drank 3 milkshakes. It's so delicious. Other than that, I don't like sugary drinks.
If I like preload with Benadryl and bring an EpiPen, I can have one of those delicious pina coladas. I want one so bad.
Maybe there'll be something that will help you not be allergic to coconut anymore. Like maybe if you start drinking, do you drink raw milk? Have you tried that?
I'm not drinking raw milk, and I need to have Isabella hypnotize me, and then I won't be allergic to coconut anymore.
Okay, so are we going to give it a try?
I think we should give it a try.
I'm worried.
There's a pharmacy on every corner. I can get an EpiPen down there for like $17. So
okay. Okay, I'm in. Okay, so Isabella will hypnotize you. Maybe how else can we prep for this? I feel like the raw milk thing, you'd need more time. You'd need to be drinking raw milk more regularly for it to have the effect of correcting your we're just making things up now. Your allergy to
tragic coconut allergy.
What a ridiculous thing to be allergic to, you know what I mean? Like, why? Why coconut? Like, what is it in coconut that you're allergic to?
It's really sad. All I can think is like I was really overdoing it on coconuts because it's so popular now and it was in everything. And I was pretending coconut sugar wasn't really sugar and it's in all the body products. And it took me forever to figure out that coconut was what was making me react. But it's been, yeah. But I think, again, like I'm almost entirely of British Isles descent. Like I evolved to eat no coconuts.
Okay.
Right? I'm not made of coconuts genetically. It's so
Me
sad
neither.
because I love coconuts.
Yeah. I mean, I don't eat a lot of coconut, but when I make smoothies, I put coconut milk in it because
Oh, I
it's
love coconut
delicious.
milk. I'm gonna get Isabella to hypnotize me so hard, and then we're gonna.
Okay. I really hope this works because I feel sad for you that you can't drink these the greatest pina coladas that I've ever had in my
God,
entire
they're
life.
so good. Yeah. Remember, I drank
Yeah.
3 of them, and I was just, really, really not doing
Was
well.
it worth it?
Of course it was, but it was Phil asked me to please not do that this time because he had to deal with my horrific eczema that's going on. I was
Oh
so broken
gosh.
out. Yeah. Yeah. But it's not gonna happen this time. I'm over it. I have thought my way. I've my good thinking and
I really hope that
yeah.
Isabella's hypnotism is powerful.
Yes, it is. It is. Well,
Okay. Was there
all right.
anything else? Did we get through everything?
I
Salt,
think we got
red
that.
meat, butter, eggs,
Egg.
sun,
Totally,
coffee.
totally. Lard.
How about red wine?
Red
I think
wine that
red
has
wine
what?
is people say that all alcohol is bad for you, but that's bullshit. I think if you have I read somewhere like half a glass of or like 3 drinks a week. I feel like if you drink a glass of red wine every night, you're fine. Like
Yeah, I'm watching like the tricksiness of the multi-billion-dollar cannabis industry that convinced everyone it was medicine. I'm like, oh, alcohol should have been in on that. Like it's, it convinced
I feel like
it,
sometimes they get in on that. You can find all sorts of studies that say that red wine's good for you, and I like to subscribe to those studies
but it's
as I
not
don't ever want to
cool.
give up red wine.
No, but it's acceptable to say cannabis helps me with my social anxiety, but everyone thinks you're an alcoholic if you say alcohol helps you with your social anxiety, right?
Seriously.
But alcohol is great for social anxiety.
Of
It's
course.
actually
It's the
really, really
best thing for social anxiety.
exactly.
I don't know, and I don't know anything about weed. I'm not a weed smoker. I don't like it, but I mean, if you guys, I think you and Isabella know some things and had mentioned doing a show about that sometime in the future, so we should do that. But I don't know how much I'll be able to contribute. I'll try to do some research, but I mean, I've always just sort of believed people when they said that weed was medicinal and good for you and so on and so forth. I just personally I don't like the feeling of being high. Just
Yeah.
drunk a little bit sometimes, I guess.
Yeah, I'm just such a contrarian. I'm like, I was a lot more into weed when the government didn't want me to do it, Like it's
Mm.
like living in a town where there's a weed shop on every corner and all the politicians are invested in weed and they're like industrial weed farms everywhere. I'm like, this is boring. And
It never was vilified in Vancouver. Like even before it was legal, it was essentially illegal because everybody just had weed all the time and you could smoke weed out in public. Like I didn't even think, when people came from other places and they're like, oh, somebody's smoking weed. I'm like, yeah, somebody's always smoking weed. Vancouver, it smells like weed everywhere in Vancouver. Like it's just it never felt like a bad thing. I don't want to spend my night lying on the couch eating candy and watching cartoons.
yeah, well, totally.
I guess I'm just different. I'm not like the other girls, as the feminists like to tell me.
No, you're not.
Oh, well, aren't
Maybe,
you so great? You're not like the other girls. And I was like, I guess not. No, because you don't like
totally.
Taylor Swift.
No, maybe you should take some testosterone and cut your breasts off. But yes, I know.
I'll think about it.
No,
Will
you
that
think
help?
about it. Will that help? Yeah, we
Okay.
should talk about weed sometime. This was great. I'm glad that we
Yeah.
talked about all the crazy food stuff. I'm going to try the raw milk. I'm going to get on the raw milk train.
Oh, it's so great. I think it's so
Mm.
great. I just love it. And I love what it's done for my gut.
Can you get raw cream down there too?
I believe so. There's always like a huge, I haven't even looked, I have gotten raw cream down here before, but like the raw milk is so creamy and it's sweet in and
Yeah.
of itself. So I feel like at the time I bought cream, and I used to always put cream in my coffee. I just felt like it was too much.
Yeah.
You might love it though. So I just buy things. It's amazing how much better it is, like in
Yeah.
consistency and taste, and it never goes bad. It just turns into yogurt.
Oh, wow.
Like your raw milk doesn't actually go off. You just have
Wow.
yogurt.
Right. It's just, again, just the
It's just
hoodwinking of it.
amazing.
The way they've convinced people this. Yeah, well, maybe sometime we should talk about all the fake meat and stuff too. That's a whole other, like to put the Impossible
Yeah, the
Burger.
the lab grown meat. I definitely want to talk about that. The fake meat, I think that's horrific for a wide variety of reasons. I just we need to hang on to our farms and our lands and our guns and our chickens and our pickup trucks that run on gas. That you can actually roll down the windows, that you can actually, fix the engine, somebody who can help you fix the engine. And yeah, I mean, hanging on to our freedom and our sovereignty, that's like my main prerogative. That's what like makes me feel most scared and nervous about the future, is just this kind of forced dependence.
Me too. Absolutely. And people clamoring for it. The fact that so many people want it is even scarier to me than what I see happening. It's like, wow, people are going to be begging for that. Yeah.
Someone's asking about guns in the comment, and I just want to say I don't have any guns, but I've been trying to get trained, and by trying, when I was in Texas, I went and learned how to use guns.
Good for you.
You got to know how. If you want to protect yourself and be able to hunt if you need to. I don't really want to ever have to protect myself or to hunt, to be honest, but these are very important skills to have. So yes, I think that people should for sure have guns.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I have guns. I grew up with guns. I'm not, afraid. So I have a healthy respect of guns. And I have to say, I don't really like going to the gun range because I just don't like that many people shooting guns around me. It's so loud,
Oh yeah. I was really scared at the gun range. I mean, I was never around guns. I never grew up with guns. So I had never even touched summer in Texas. And so it was pretty scary to me, but it's one of those things that I'm just like forcing myself to do because I don't want to be scared of them. I want to feel comfortable with them and know how to use them in case I need to use them. And yeah, it's really, really loud at the gun range. It's pretty intense. Yeah.
That's too much for me. And I do have to say that I just have this fear at the gun range that some crazy guy is just going to shoot people at the gun range, but
anything could happen.
Anything could happen anywhere. And I haven't really heard of that. I think there was like one case that happened with
people there seem very responsible at the gun range.
Well, that's what I think too. And I also think someone will take that guy out pretty quickly at the gun range because literally everyone has a gun. Everybody there has a gun in their hand.
You would never get away with it.
Totally. Yeah, and then it's scary to learn as an adult, but where I grew up in gun culture, like where everyone was hunting and people had a lot of respect for guns, like you start off with a BB gun as a kid and you learn to get good at that, and the adults decide you're responsible enough for a pellet gun, and then you're responsible enough to like go out with a 22 and hunt rabbits. It's not guns, another thing they say is bad for us.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's all other
everything. Okay, well, this was fun.
It was great.
It was good to see you, Mary Lou. I will see you in person soon. What day? Are you seeing me next week?
Yeah, I'm coming on Thursday. I'm so excited.
Oh, okay, so there'll be a stream, and then you're coming the next day. That is exciting.
Oh, right. I'll see you before I come. Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Please like and subscribe. It's very helpful in terms of supporting the channel. And tune in next week. We're here every Wednesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And if you guys have ideas for things that you want us to talk about, I don't know, post them in the comments. Let me know. You can message me on Patreon. We seem to always have lots of things to talk about, but I would love to
Absolutely.
hear people's suggestions. So thank you. And oh yeah, happy Valentine's Day. Happy Ash Wednesday. Good luck with your Lent.
I'm doing really well so far. It feels liberating. But on Sunday, I get to be mad. So we'll see.
Fun. Something to look forward to.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye. Good to see
Bye.
you.